Hey everyone, Jeremy Cubas here. After Lila Rose's disastrous debate on abortion with Destiny on the Whatever podcast, Trent Horn decided to pick up her mantle and make a fool of himself. There's nothing more frustrating than watching someone do something badly, especially when you know the right way to do it. This is why people who excel at a certain sport rarely watch a sport after they retire. Watching people play the sport badly, worse than you, is just far too frustrating, which makes watching the sport joyless. If you're a good cook and you see someone holding a knife wrong or throwing a chicken into the oven without any spices, not even basics like salt and pepper, you either just want to walk away or become Gordon Ramsay and yell, "What the fuck are you doing? Are you trying to piss me off?" Such was the case yesterday when Trent Horn debated Destiny. And what makes things worse is that Trent Horn holds the correct position but cannot reason his way to the correct position if his life depended on it. Not even when he is given 2 whole fucking hours to do so. First, anyone who wants to debate Destiny has to realize that Destiny is clever and logically consistent. You may disagree with him, but he is still consistent. You will not get him in a gotcha moment with counterfactuals or hypotheticals. Trent Horn spent the entire first hour bringing up counterfactuals after counterfactuals, and Destiny replied to each one of the counterfactuals with consistency through and through. So here's some clips.
Would it be wrong to cause a healthy fetus to become permanently unconscious? So would it be wrong to cause this permanent unconsciousness to use, let's say you could keep growing the fetus into an older body, to use it for organ harvesting, maybe as a kind of sex doll even?
As long as it never became conscious or didn't have the faculty?
Never became conscious.
Correct.
Okay. So let's say we had people who took fetuses, made them permanently unconscious, and made them infant, toddler, or child sex dolls. So we have, unconscious infants and toddlers. They were never conscious. They're used as child sex dolls. Your only objection to that practice would be if it caused more pedophilia among other conscious children.
Yeah, because I would say there's no person is being harmed there.
Would it be wrong to kill a newborn who has never been conscious?
Assuming it lacked the ability to be conscious, sure. It's not, or you can kill it. There's nothing to kill. You can end the existence of whatever that is, yes.
Well, suppose it didn't permanently lack the ability. If we gave it drugs or something like that, or maybe it'll naturally come out of it in a few months.
This is such a tiresome method that many academics, especially epistemologists, do in their discussions and essays. The goal of this method is to try to find a hypothetical that would challenge your desideratum by way of your intuition. The entire contemporary epistemology is just that. It's trying to align one's own intuition with their desideratum. So they use the falsification method by way of counterfactuals, or hypotheticals as some call it, to see if your proposition, to see if your desideratum can hold up to scrutiny. Now, the appeal to intuition is one of the weakest form of arguments that one can make. As epistemologist Matthew Lau said, when philosophers run out of arguments, they often appeal to intuitions. If something is intuitive, it tends to count in favor of a position, and if something is counterintuitive, it tends to count against a position. An intuition is the ability to understand something immediately without conscious reasoning. For this reason, there has been many recent moves away from counterfactuals in epistemology, but it still is the dominant method. And the reason why there's a bit of a push to go against it is because intuition is simply understood as a byproduct of enculturation. For this reason, intuitions differ between people with different axiomatic propositions. And you see these kind of distinctions within cultures or subcultures or beliefs or what have you. Many philosophers who want to defend the use of intuitions in philosophical discourse make a distinction between base intuitions, which are immediate intuitions to a proposition, and robust intuitions, which are intuitions that a competent speaker, and competent speaker they mostly just refer to academically disciplined philosophers or other disciplines, that these competent speakers might have under certain sufficiently ideal conditions, such as when they are not being biased. So base intuitions are considered biased and produced through basic enculturation, and robust intuitions are considered unbiased based on a trained epistemologist. However, this distinction between base intuition and robust intuition is just bullshit. Neither forms of intuition ought to be used in a rational philosophical discourse beyond an inductive argument by sign or other kind of argument that cannot stand alone as an argument, but only support a broader argument. Ultimately, intuitions of any sort are cognitive emotional reactions that is learned behavior by conditioning through associative and social cognitive learning. We are conditioned through enculturation to have an emotional response to certain words, propositions, and or behaviors. This is why, as I discuss in my episode about taboos, we have emotional responses to particular words, such as race or slurs, particular topics, such as rape or divorce, homosexuality, and other type of behaviors that become taboo in a society. So if you live in a culture that is not of the contemporary culture, but is deep philosophically a Christian Catholic culture from the medieval period, that fundamental belief system develops a different kind of emotional response. Maybe they're going to be emotionally responding, have an intuition about blasphemous propositions against God, because they were conditioned to do so. That's the way that conditioning in a society or if any given, small structure has. That being the case, intuitions of any sort is not rational, but rather emotional. And worse still, robust intuitions seem to be the worst case scenario of conditioning over any other. A trained academic philosopher has gone through immense amount of conditioning. Education as a whole is utilizing many primary and secondary reinforcers, as well as repetitive rote memorization, in order to repeat back to the professor what they want to hear from you. Basically, the professor tells you something, and he just wants you to repeat it back to him, either in paper form, in test form, or in presentation form. So trained academic philosophers have been really put through the ringer of conditioning, which makes our conditioned responses to propositions or intuitions not very universal at all. It becomes very narrow and extremely biased, because it's going to be extremely biased to the discipline that you were trained in. The robust intuition is the most biased form of intuition that can ever be produced. So Trent Horn's constant appeal to intuition is just dumb. Who gives a shit what kind of conditioned emotional responses one has to a counterfactual or to a hypothetical? Destiny is far too clever to fall for any gotcha moment to counterfactuals or hypotheticals. And to make things worse, the hypotheticals that Trent Horn used were uninteresting and just lame. Second, Trent Horn's refusal to answer any of Destiny's hypotheticals is just a pussy move. If you want to play this hypothetical game, if you started this hypothetical game by presenting an immense amount of various hypotheticals for one whole fucking hour, and then refuse to continue to play the game once Destiny comes up with his own stupid hypotheticals, that's just a loser, dickless move. We all played with children like this, right? At one point or another in our life, when we ourselves were kids. You have this kid who makes up his own rules to a particular game, even if it's just a made-up game or a game that pre-exists. And then once you start beating him at his own game, he changes the rules or simply refuses to engage with the original rules that he himself made. If Trent wanted to play this stupid hypothetical game, bringing up counterfactuals of an unconscious 2-year-old and a magic medicine that can bring them back into consciousness or to bring them to consciousness for the first time, but then refuses to play when Destiny brings up his equally inane hypotheticals, then again, that is a very stupid, dickless, loser, pussy move that anyone could ever make. Third, in the end, when a listener wrote into the podcast a question, can you steel man the opposing argument? Destiny's reformulation of Trent Horn's position was far better than anything Trent Horn said for 2 whole fucking hours. Take a look.
I think transposition is essentially a teleological argument. There is a telos, there is like a design and function and purpose of a zygote from the moment of conception up to the moment of death. We have one consistent organism with its own genetic code, and the most consistent boundary to draw around the protection of that life is from the moment of its inception, the time that that unique organism is created, which is at the moment of conception, until the time of its death, which is when essentially metabolic function has ceased. Because the telos, or the design of, or the ordinary function of that particular egg is to gestate in the womb, be born into a person, grow, develop, and then eventually die as a human being.
That was the steel man of the other side.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Now that's just pathetic, honestly. For 2 hours straight, Trent Horn had a platform to present the pro-life position, and a blue-haired clever midwit was able to formulate Horn's argument far better than he did himself. And it took him less than 2 minutes. Honestly, like, what the fuck? What the fuck were you trying to do? Were you trying to make yourself look like a fool? So here's the thing. Destiny's position is actually closer to Thomas Aquinas' position than really Trent Horn's position is. Destiny's position is that killing a human being is wrong. And he defines a human being as an animal with unique human conscious experience. Now, he doesn't say what that exactly means, but one can, if you're being just, I guess, intellectually honest to his position, one can easily infer that our creative, rational process of our unique human conscious experience is what differs from other animals, is what makes it unique. Our rational soul, as Aquinas would say, our intellective soul, is what makes man unique, from the moment of ensoulment or quickening, as Aquinas believed. Aquinas believed in the Aristotelian of quickening, when in 40 days after conception, or 80 days if you're a female baby, the body goes through the process of ensoulment. And in this process, the human gets their intellective soul, even if primitive. And after this moment, Aquinas says, it is constituted as murder to kill this unborn child. Destiny is making the exact same argument. He is saying that the human conscious experience is unique to human above all other animals. That in the moment that this emerged consciousness happens, then it is considered murder because now they are a conscious human being. He puts 20 weeks on this limit, but he openly says that if one can detect human consciousness earlier, then he has no issue saying that killing that earlier stage of the unborn child is still murder. Rather than arguing for the human intellective soul as being present from the moment of conception, as we already see certain activities and synapses that become the brain, at the stage of a zygote, due to advancements of scientific technology, we could actually detect this now. Trent wants to somehow debunk Destiny's position with stupid appeals to intuitions through asinine hypotheticals. Rather than recognizing that Destiny is actually making a valid argument here and pointing out that maybe it is unsound due to the false premise that 20 weeks is the point of unique human conscious experience, he tries to debunk this argument altogether. And that's just dumb, and he fails miserably. Further, Trent Horn continues to object to the idea that human consciousness is not different in kind to all other animals or beasts, as Aquinas will call it, but only a difference in degree. It's like, really? That's where you're going to go with this? This is quite possibly one of the most stupid things that he said throughout the entire debate. He is accepting a flawed conception of the human mind, of the human soul, of the human intellect, of the human consciousness that was posited by 20th century naturalists. Sorry, but Trent Horn here is just wrong, and Destiny is correct. The human conscious experience is not a difference in degree to other beasts, to other animals, but rather it's a difference in kind. Conflating the cognition, conflating the consciousness of a raccoon or a pig or a lizard and saying that it's only a difference in degree to that of a human consciousness is one of the most stupid ideas that anyone has and can ever hold in the history of mankind. Trent Horn's performance was embarrassing. Even if he holds the correct position that abortion is murder from the time of conception, he did not argue this well at all. In fact, he made a fool of himself and has done great damage to people's perception of Catholic pro-life position that has the potential to turn people away from the faith. It was a horrible performance that can potentially lead listeners astray. And I may sound very harsh on him at this point, but that's because I care about truth. And if somebody is presenting improper, invalid, unsound arguments that can support a true claim, and then I'm going to be much harder on the person who holds the correct position but can't argue his way out of his own fucking ass. All right? That's the show for today, or at least for this segment. Thank you. And for our members, the Contragentistas, we will continue the show. And for our non-members, please subscribe at our Patreon or on our website, contragentiles.com.